Do you mirror displays? Do you know? Or
yeah, we do. And then
once it started, I'm sorry.
I'll be right. But people who like
Mr. Hayes? Hey. I noticed today there was
I have like these little PowerPoints and also like kind of like yeah, I can see it.
I just dropped it on
Notice he goes and
sorry, I don't know if I was doing it.
yes, new businesses and free notice.
Should we take some?
I would just another business. I've got yeah,
So what were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
Yes. Okay, so what it is I said that's what you have the motion to be able to call the roll. What's your opinion?
I call this meeting to order at 5:01 p.m. Will the Executive Vice President call the roll?
Okay. Barrientos. Hassan Fedor. Beavers. Here. Burton. Kale. Here. Cato.
Here.
Cheek. Here. DeLuca.
Here.
DePersia. Here. Farnham.
Here.
Galarza. Here. Golden. Here. Graham.
Here.
Hall. Here. Ivy. Here. Kilgrim. Here. Little.
Here.
Lockins.
Here.
Here. Devon Moore. Beatrice Moore. Murphy.
Here.
Patel.
Here.
Powell.
Here.
Ramchandani.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Sander. Here. Saxena.
Here.
Scape. Here. Story.
Here.
Spears.
Here.
Street. Here. Teeter.
Here.
Durion.
Here.
Tribble.
Here.
Van Thrift.
Here.
Waitsman.
Here.
Wesley. Here. Weston.
Here.
Young.
If there are no objections or corrections, we'll approve the minutes from last week's meeting as distributed. At this time, the floor is open for anyone that wants to speak before the body. Okay. Our first presenter this evening is Mr. Jim Neighbors, the General Manager of Aramark. So if there are no objections, I will suspend the rules for 10 minutes to allow him to present. Okay. Mr. Neighbors.
First off, I don't know some of you, I know most of you, so welcome to the ones I know. And this is Morgan Gerke, and I don't remember if I introduced you all to Morgan last time, but she is our marketing coordinator here on campus. So she is really in charge of all signage, all social media, and getting things put out there, and making sure we respond to things that happen. So that's what Morgan does, and then she helps me a lot of other ways too. That's her main thing. Menu boards are a big thing for her right now, so hopefully y'all all see the changes in this year and how she's really taken that by the bottle of horns and taken it, gotten it to a new level. I just want to talk a little bit about what we've done this semester, what we've kind of changed, and see if you've noticed things, especially in the cafeteria, because that seems to be where most issues are. I know sometimes there's some service issues and some equipment issues in retail, but it just seems to be like the cafeteria is where the issues have become the most prevalent. So first off, I don't know if you've all noticed, but we used to have the deli open just during lunchtime, just during lunch, and just during dinner. It's now open from 10:45 until 7 p.m. So it's continuous service. And so that helps the options for the light lunches and light dinners. So that's a great thing for you all, I think. I hope everybody's noticed that. I know that it's been a while since I've been here. Unfortunately, this is in October. And since October, we've also started Cajun Wednesdays. So I don't know who all has tried Cajun Wednesdays. I don't know if you all like Cajun food. If you don't, sure, I mean, it's going over really well, and we've had great responses for it. And I just hope it's something that you all have noticed. Just probably 2 weeks ago, we started where we now do a potato bar, a baked potato bar every other day. So we do either baked potatoes or pasta. So we switch them out daily. The things we've done, the potato bars, both baked and sweet potatoes. And we also do all the toppings for it, chili, cheese, and all the color toppings. We also have on pasta days, we've incorporated doing garlic bread for all those days, and we've also put a Caesar salad where between pasta and pizza. So now it's really a full service station for you. You can get your salad, you can get your bread, you can get your pasta. So I hope you noticed all that too. We always get comments about why can't we spice up the food more? Why can't we season it more? And we all know that we do that because you have to follow nutritional standards, so you have to follow recipes. So we've added 2 spice racks. So I don't know if y'all noticed those, where the produce bar is, salad bar is. So now there's all kinds of spices that you can add to your food. So we've really seen, hopefully, I haven't had to refill many of them except the sea salt. So hopefully people are enjoying it, but it's not like it's getting a lot of use, but it's there for the people who do want it. Another thing, I just hope everybody really likes Starbucks. I know we've had some issues with the registers. I've ordered 2 new ones. They were both approved by Aramark Finance team today. So those will both be in. So we've got one that's broken, it'll be updated. And then the other one loses support in the summer. So I'm just replacing them both now. So all that card readers and everything will be new. There has been a problem with our Starbucks gift card readers. And that has always been an IT problem, not being able to get through the firewall here. They worked on it until about 6 p.m. last Friday and realized that it's no longer the firewall, it is actually it's called a mini PC that it connects to go out into the Starbucks world. So I'm having to replace that. So that's all on the agenda now too. They're working with Aramark IT. The University IT is working with Aramark IT to get that resolved. I know vegan visibility has always been a real concern. So I hope that y'all can really notice now where our vegan options are. They are not only, Morgan is not only tweeting them out, putting them on Instagram every single day. She does a menu board right as you walk in, the welcome screen tells you what the vegan options are for the day, where they're located for the day. And all menu boards now have the little green leaf for the vegan entrees. So when you see that green leaf, you either be vegan or vegetarian. I think they're both, I think they spell out what they are, but the little green leaf on the menu boards. To-go boxes. We've talked about to-go boxes. So I know we're still waiting on a couple of things. I know that I got Casey to look through. For those of you who don't know, we're looking at using a reusable to-go box instead of doing all the styrofoam. We've got to do some surveys for it because we did one in the fall, but we didn't have the response that any of us felt like we really needed in order to make that change. But we have, when we set that survey up, there's a place you can click to only take one per IP address. We do not have that checked. So hopefully when we get with the IT department here, we can try several from the same IP address and make sure it works before we go live and do that. Let's see, what else? I think the only other thing that I've really noticed, a couple of things is an issue that has been something that is kind of a training thing for us. It has been, that's just some frustration for students. And that is that the cashiers in the cafeteria have let people in on other people's meal plans. They have done that inadvertently because there's really only 2 meal plans that you can't do that on. But those are the traditional meal plans. Those are the 15 meal plan and the total access plan. Those are for the card holder only. There was really, except for on Aramark's literature, there was really nothing said about that. So it's now on the UCA dining side as well as the Aramark dining side. And our cashiers have been instructed that that's how it works. Because I know someone would let people in, they just let them in, and that's not. You can only let people in if you have a block payment using your dining hall. So now I'll open up for questions. If I can help you all, just let me know. I'll be glad to answer what I can.
What questions do you all have? Senator Durion?
So, well, I was thinking about this. Great work, love the adjustments, food tastes delicious, love the potato bar. But when it comes down to avocados, so I know those are kind of pricey and they'd probably drive up quite a bit of the food consumption because they don't really hold over very well either. What's the policy on us being able to, like, I don't know, potentially bring on our own to add to one of your meals? When I was on the cross country and track team, I spoke with the staff nutritionist and she said that was perfectly okay. And then when I tried to do it last year, I got stopped at the door. Is that an allergy thing or is that just unawareness?
That's, number one, it sounds bad, but I was never talked to about that by our registered dietitian and staff. So that's something that I didn't even know about.
Well, this is like years ago, so.
Still something, if it was our RD, if it was an Aramark RD, I knew nothing about it. So I think that, I mean, bringing food in is kind of something that we don't allow. If it's something like that, I'd probably take a look at it. So if you want to come talk to me, we'd talk about it, we'd see how we would handle that with the cashiers letting you in. And just to make sure that, again, that if we start making these adjustments, they need to be consistent. So I want us to be sure to talk the same.
Thank you.
What other questions do you have? Senator Story?
For promoting more diversity in the cafeteria, I was wondering if we could find a day each week and have like a table with food from different countries.
It is something I'll think about. I'll have to find out how I'm gonna do that. Because again, everything has to be, all nutritional facts have to be out. They have to go to the website, they have to be on the link for that, maybe boards actually. So I have to find out how to get a recipes for it, and how, if those recipes came from students, how I can get those localized. We can localize recipes, so I'm not saying we can't, but I'd have to do that, but I'd have to have somebody actually get all the nutritional information for me, those recipes. And then that's something we could look at. Might not be a table each week in the caf, but we could do something like on the exhibition station. We do daily changes, especially on Fridays. We do fun Fridays. We could certainly look at something on that station.
What other questions do you have? Senator Song.
Thank you for your presentation, sir.
Sure.
I wanted to know, like, why does the price varies from like lunch to dinner?
It varies for each meal period.
Yeah.
It does. It goes breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's something that has been instituted by us, by Airmark and the university. For the past, I guess, years, a lot of years. So the only reason to do it is, I mean, the breakfast items are less expensive, so I understand them. And I think the lunch and dinner pricing is done just because lunch is mainly students, and dinner sometimes has more off-campus people. And those people are not, shouldn't get the same price as students do.
What other questions do you have? I actually have a question. Can you tell us if there's a timeline for when Aramark will be hiring a dietitian or a nutritionist to replace Lauren?
I have worked on that. I've interviewed several people. I've got another interview this Thursday. So hopefully it's going to be within a month. I mean, it's been really hard to find one because it's part-time. And that's where I think the issue is.
Awesome, thank you. Vice President McGarry.
There's been some talk about getting seats in the Student Center for the cashiers. Has there been an update on that?
I have not talked to Spence about it yet, and so I really don't know. It's something that, it's something that I don't understand simply because when we hire those people, they know that that's what their job's going to entail. So we stand those hours. And they're not, if you notice, they don't just sit there, because when they're not busy, they're up stocking and doing other things. And it's just something that I'm gonna have to really think about. I know that one time when we talked, or when I got something from you, it was just about someone's, was pregnant, so it's about her condition. So I think there's always exceptions. I just would love to know those beforehand, before I make a decision for everyone to say, no, I'm not gonna allow it, or yes, I am.
What other questions do you all have? Thank you, Mr. Neighbors.
Thank you all so much.
Our other presenter tonight is Michael Long from the UCA Dance Marathon. So if there are no objections, I will suspend the rules for 10 minutes to allow him to present.
Appreciate you guys having me. First time being in here in this room is pretty cool seeing how you guys all operate. But my name is Michael Long. I'm a senior here at UCA. And I'm one of the co-directors for UCA Dance Marathon. I kind of want to talk to you guys for a minute what we're about. If you want to go to the next slide. Essentially what Dance Marathon is we are a non-profit student-led organization. We're kind of newer here on this campus. It's kind of more bigger up north. And the goal is to support the local hospitals within those respective states. And so, like I said, it's student-led. There are hundreds of colleges across the U.S. that are, their goal is to raise as much money for these hospitals as they can. As you can see there, that stat probably is out of date, but nearly $60 million have been raised for these respective hospitals. And obviously here in our state, we have the Arkansas Children's Hospitals where we support. We have one here in Little Rock, and we have one that has been recently built in northwestern Arkansas. And our goal is obviously to support as many kids as we can through this event. And like I said, it's located here in Little Rock, just 30 minutes from where we're located currently. So essentially what you'll do if you are interested, I know that there are a lot of different respective organizations Peter in this room. I know that's been Stevens with the fishing team, or I see Will Teeter back here with College Republicans, or whoever you're represented as here together. I know that we're SGA as one body. But you will form as one team with your respective entity, or you can form a team with SGA. I'm not particularly sure how you guys would like to do it. That's how I'm here. But you'd form a team, and you would become a team captain, and then you would bring people under you. And there is a registration fee with that, and all those proceeds go directly towards the Children's Hospital for that respective reason. You can go ahead and go on to the next one. There's a little video I'll show you what the event would look like, but we don't have to do that. We can go ahead and go. So like I said, the main event, it'll be March 30th, 2019. It's in the Print Center, UCA. That's kind of where they do the girls volleyball games from 10 to 5 p.m. It essentially is 6 volunteer hours for each entity who comes. If your organization is kind of needing those, it's a good way to connect with other organizations. And also, we're going to have what you call ambassadors, which is essentially the families of surviving kids. They'll come and bring their kids, and they'll share essentially what they've been through and how that this dance marathon has helped them to raise the funds they need to go through a potential like a heart transplant or whatever it may be. And so at the event itself, we're going to have a lot of different vendors. We're going to have foods, games, prizes. We're going to have, like I said, kids from the hospitals. We're going to have essentially like we're having it blocked hour by hour, so we'll have different events geared towards you and your group raising funds for the Children's Hospital. And I can get more into detail with that here in a second, how you register. You would essentially go to this link. We're in website reprocessing right now. We've had a little bit of a problem with that, but we're getting that finalized where we can share that with you formally. Essentially what you'll do is through that link you will go and you'll register. It shows you how many weeks are left. And it'll show you where, when, and how on that full website itself. But you'll go and you'll see where it says register now. You'll click that, or you can essentially donate directly. Next slide. You'll essentially sign up with your name, email, password. It's very simple. And then you'll either, this is the key right here, you can either sign up as an individual, you can join as a team, or you can create your own team. And so I think that's kind of where the key comes in if you want to get more involved through this avenue. And so this fee covers your t-shirt, covers your entry to the event, and it allows you to have access to a personal donor drive where essentially where you can send out via text, you can send it through email, kind of like pre-scripted text of talking to your friends and family about, hey, I'm here at this event. We're raising funds for the Children's Hospital. I'm here with UCA. We're interconnected together, having a good time. If you'd like to donate, do that. And we all have an essential goal. Each person, this is kind of what your donor drive will look like. I've raised $165 out of $200 is my personal goal. Goal as a co-director for this event, and that's kind of what your page will look like. You'll also get your own personal app, or you'll have your app. It's called the Donor Drive app, but you'll be your own personal page on it. You can show your personal bio, show you where you're from, blah, 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 and you can send that out to each person while we're at the event. And that's what we'll do at the event. With these block hours, you will essentially play these games. You'll have fun, prizes, whatever, but you'll have times where you're just sending out texts to people trying to get them to donate and raise money for these kids. And one of our main things is where we have the availability for you guys to become sponsors. I don't know if SGA would be interested in potentially doing that. I don't know where your funding's at. You get with Spencer on that or whatever. But we're essentially asking for a start of $500, and this will go towards the operations of our event, which can be going towards lights, sound, availability for these different vendors to be there, availability for just helping us to get the candy we need or the food we need. A lunch will be provided, things of that nature. And I can give you guys a sponsorship packet. I can get with you individually one-on-one if I need to talk more about that. But I think one of the key things is that as each person registers, like I said earlier, it's $25 to register. But there will be a discount on registration on February 13th, which is 2 days. That's on Wednesday of this week, and it'll be $12 a person, $12.50, and it'll be for 24 hours for you to be able to do that. And I think that's all I have. Is that correct? Yeah. So I don't know how particularly SGA works on all of this. I thought it would just be a great opportunity. We're, like I said, a newer entity, and it's very big up north. I mean, it's some of these, like I know one of our liaisons through Arkansas Children's is over, she used to be at Texas A&M, and they would have 20,000 people come out to their event. And so our goal is to try to, I don't know, kind of become more like the big event or kind of one of these other nonprofit kind of fundraising organizations for a bigger cause. And so currently we have a couple of teams registered. We're trying to get as many as we can. I think it'd be really cool if we could get this thing big to obviously raise as much. Maybe the the American Chemical Society would like to make a team, or whoever would like to make a team in, and it's obviously for a major goal. This girl Jakaya, she's been through 3 rounds of chemo, and I think there's no doubt that obviously the funds might be kind of small for a bigger operation, but anything helps. I think it's cool to see that UCA can maybe represent Arkansas children in an awesome way. So that's kind of the synopsis of it. Does that make sense to everybody? Awesome. Anybody have any questions?
What questions do you have? Senator Farnham?
Yeah, so is this the first year this is going to be happening on UCA campus?
This will be the 3rd year.
The 3rd year. And what kind of traffic have you seen in the past 2 years? Is it really a lot?
The traffic went from approximately 80 people to about 200.
Okay. And how exactly are y'all trying to get the word? Obviously, you're presenting to all of us, but are you going to other organizations too?
We have presented to probably over 20 organizations over the past year.
Okay.
What other questions do you have? Thank you, Michael. All right, so I will go into my report. Just a friendly reminder, when we are doing debate or discussion on motions, previous notices, any action that we're taking, remember that we are debating ideas and not people. So just be respectful. You were all elected or appointed to serve with the individuals in this room, and we all share a common goal of bettering the student body, bettering our experience as students on this campus. So try not to attack each other. Remember that we are debating ideas. So just bear that in mind. So the Associate Vice President for Enrollment Management, they've selected another finalist. So Dr. Julia Windenfay's interview was this past Friday. Dr. Kevin Thomas from Southern Illinois University, he is the current Director of Retention and Student Success at Southern Illinois, is another finalist. And his interview will be this Friday, February the 15th at 3:30 in Wingo Hall in the boardroom. So if any of you are interested in attending his interview, if you will please let me know. I will forward you the link with all of his candidate information. And I'll be sending you all a reminder about that later in the week so that you'll show up. The Board of Trustees is also hosting or holding their first meeting of 2019 this Friday at 10:30 in the boardroom in Wingo Hall. So if you are interested in attending the Board of Trustees meeting, they are open to the public, so feel free to come sit in, listen to what they have to talk about. They will be introducing our new trustee, Dr. Fiddler, as well as voting on a feasibility study to approve bonds for the new Center for Fine and Performing Arts. So similar to how they did with the Integrated Health Sciences building, the board will need to approve a feasibility study for the Department of Higher Education to assess whether or not the institution can take on more bond debt to fund this building. So a little bit of background, the gift from the Wingate Foundation, that $20 million gift, is a matching gift. So the purpose of the feasibility study would be for ADHE to determine whether or not UCA can take on another $20 million in bond capacity to match the $20 million that Wingate donated. So just in case there was any confusion about that. It was a $20 million gift, but it's a matching gift, so we have to match the $20 million. Couple of announcements. So DASH emergency grants, if you don't know what they are, you all have this fun little card sitting with your agendas tonight. So these are it's to help with a one-time financial crisis or emergency. So if you are having, or any of your constituents are having any kind of issues, financial issues, and you just really need some assistance, we have an emergency grant office, and you can apply for a DASH emergency grant. So all of the requirements, the application process is all on this card. So definitely feel free to share this with your constituents and reach out to April Myers if you have any questions about that. My last announcement is there will be a sexual health fair tomorrow, February the 12th. So the UCA Wellness Ambassadors are doing a mini health fair from 11:30 to 2:30 in Student Center, room 215. The focus is on sexual health. So the decision to be sexually active is personal and different for each individual. And they're going to be having a variety of information booths as well as guest speakers from the Arkansas Department of Health. So if you have free time from 11:30 to 2:30 tomorrow, go to Student Center 215 and check out the sexual health fair. And that is all I have. What questions do you have? Senator Farnham?
Yeah, so the Board of Trustees meetings, I know they're up to the public. Do they live stream those? Because I know a lot of us are going to be either in class or something like that.
They are recorded, and I will have to check with Ms. Susan and President Davis to find out if they are archived somewhere, because I don't know that, but I will get back to you. What other questions do you have? Okay, Vice President McNeary.
Okay, hi everyone. So thank you to our ideal pages, Elise and Olivia, for being here today. And then the 4 new elected freshman representatives are Antoine Cato, Maya Hall, Tyler Van Thrupt, and Karina Wesley. So congratulations, guys. And then we have opened up appointment applications for the College of Business representative position for SGA, and the appointment committee is holding interviews. Oh yeah, you guys should stand up, the freshmen, so we can know who you are. Sorry about that.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, so yes, we've opened up appointment applications for the College of Business representative position on SGA, and the appointment committee is holding interviews for this position on Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Big events. Don't forget to sign up for this for the SGA team. The big event is March 9th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And make sure you sign up with the SGA team if you're signing up. And you can sign up until February 14th. Polypro info. It's possible to refer a motion back to a committee. In the past, this has been done with resolutions if more information is needed. So hip hop. Mrs. Tanya had an awesome idea. So after meeting next week, we're going to be going to a hip hop class. It's optional, but we'd really like you guys to come with us. It's from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. So please join us. You can bring workout clothes and just after the meeting, go to Hyper for the class. Shadowing. If you're interested in this position next year, please reach out to me to come and shadow me and just kind of learn more about what it takes to be vice president. And then we're also doing appointing a new parliamentarian, so I'll be including the link to apply to that in the minutes. So if you're interested in applying, just go and fill out a form. We can ask them more about it if you're interested. And then advisory leadership votes. So Hank Phelps will be giving this vote today, like Tom Potts. But he's the director of the Student Center, and he's been, this is his 5th year serving as an SGA advisor. So give it up for him.
Hi guys. My quote for today is, there it is. It's from the book, children's book, The Little Prince. And if you haven't read it, I would suggest you check it out sometime and do that. It's a children's book, so it shouldn't take you long to read it. But, and I used to know at one time how to pronounce the author's name.Maybe some French-speaking person. Okay, anyway, that's not important. Oh,
Antoine de Saint-Exupéry.
Thank you very much. There you go. So anyway, what he says in the book, he says, and now here's my secret, a very simple secret. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly what is essential is invisible to the eye. And what I really like about this is that last phrase, what is essential is invisible to the eye. He's talking about each of us, okay? And for me, what this tells me that, when I'm visiting with folks or meeting people or whatever, and even people I know for a long time, I have to remind myself, to try to find what's that essential part. And it takes time. It takes a relationship to do that, okay? And that's why the metaphor of the iceberg, I think, is pretty good. We see that top part of the iceberg when we meet somebody and we maybe spend a few minutes talking to them, we get that top part. But to really get that essential part, you have to build a relationship. And that takes time, okay? So, like I said, this is something I have to constantly remind myself about, because otherwise I'll rush into judging somebody and not really understand why they're, without really bothering to understand why they're that way. And so that's my quote for the day. Think about it when you're meeting folks and getting to know them.
What questions do you have for Vice President McGarity? Okay. Senator Cheek.
Okay, I get to do the back thing, but I'm gonna come to the front so I can see the names if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh gosh, I don't know. This individual has received the senior discount at Kroger. Senator Kale, Senator Martin. Yep. Anybody else?
No, Senator Chair.
No? Senator Whitesy?
Senator Teeter.
No? Point of information, it's a senator, right?
It says this individual.
Yes. Senator Lockett?
Advisor Strickland.
No? Senator Payne? Anybody else? Senator Singh? Vice President Burton? Come on. Senator Hughes?
This does apply to the advisors, right?
It applies to anybody.
Any individual
Okay.
concerned.
Advisor Phelps.
No. Senator Weston?
I bet it was you.
Senator Farman.
No.
I don't know anymore.
Senator Tanya? No. It's a fun task, right? Senator
Dr. Tarkin.
No.
Fighting words.
Senator Teeter?
Senator Weston?
No. Senator Lofton?
Senator DeLuca.
Dang it. Senator Kane? Vice President McGarry? Yes.
I'm on some lists, but I think
Oh
I'm a lot older than I actually am. I also get letters about hearing aids. So
But I think Chrome
Thank you, Senator Sheen. Vice President Burton? I've been in teacher mode all day.
So I've really only got some pretty important dates for SAFA information for you. For those that don't know, SAFA stands for the Student Activity Fee Allocation Process. So that's what you are buying into when you pay your student activity fee, which is $15.50 a semester. Anyway, for the process, the budget requests are due February 14th, so this Thursday, no later than 11:59 p.m. And the deadline to sign up for a hearing is this Friday, no later than 11:59 p.m. And those deadlines are strictly enforced, so don't miss it. The hearings will be next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 4:30 to 9:30 p.m. We'll have a break in there for dinner. Those of you on the SAFA committee, do check your emails. I might send updates this week. And then deliberations will be the week immediately following. And then they'll receive their allocations. They'll need to go to a payment training, and the process repeats next semester. That's all I've got for you.
What questions do you have for Vice President Burton? We'll go into standing committee reports. Academic Affairs, Senator Avi.
All right, so since last week we not only have an update, we are planning to meet this Wednesday. However, I have a scheduling conflict because I will be in parent-teacher conferences. So we're going to have an online meeting to finalize our dates for donuts with the deans. Hopefully by next week we'll have that so we can tell you the official dates.
What questions do you have for Senator Avi? Internal Affairs, Senator Lawkins.
Hey, so not really a major update from last week. We're presenting 2 motions, so I'll see you in new business.
What questions do you have for Senator Lawkins? Housing and Food Services, Senator Kale.
Hello, everybody. So we met today right before Senate, and as Mr. Neighbors said, we are still working on the reusable to-go box survey. We are probably going to use execs laptops. They gave us permission to do that, and we will be signing up for slots to man the table. So if anybody's interested in helping with that and helping my committee, let me know. And I will definitely be talking to him about getting stools for the people working in the student center, because a lot of them are expecting mothers or have just had children, and that's not helping for them. So I will probably be delivering some medical knowledge soon about that, because we need to care for our workers and care for their safety. And we will be talking to housing as soon as we get our new member on the committee about food printing. That's
What questions do you have for Senator Kale? Diversity, Senator Ramirez.
Hello, everyone. Alrighty, so today's diversity vote comes from Judge Gary from Urborti versus the Board of Education. Inclusion is a right, not a privilege for a select few. So our first meeting is this Friday from 4 to 5. I'm meeting with Tyler Copeland, who's the International Student Services Coordinator and International Engagement on Wednesday at 4. And that should be with you in my report.
Great. What questions do you have for Senator Ramirez? Student Fee Advisory Committee, Senator Teeter.
All right. So for those that don't know what SFAC is, it's the Student Fee Advisory Committee, commonly known as SFAC. I'm the chair of the said committee. So my report tonight, we decided on our possible SFAC dates. Those are March 5th, 7th, 12th, 14th, 16th, and 28th. And I'll submit those to you. And my committee will get all that figured out. It's going to be an X period in the Senate chambers as usual. Fees, once again, we're looking at publication fee, radio station fee, cooperative education fee, writing and retention fee, student teacher fee, and then concerning the letter to people in charge of those fees, it's currently in the process of being made, and it's going to be sent to President Hank for approval. It'll be good to go.
Great. What questions do you have for Senator Teeter? Awesome. We will go into ad hoc committee reports. Before we go into Bear Advocacy Group's report, will all the members of the Bear Advocacy Group please stand? So I want you all to join me in giving a big round of applause to this group of individuals. They did a fantastic job, and we had a very successful Arkansas Association of Students meeting last Friday. So thank you all for your hard work. You can all be seated. So, Senator Goldrow.
Yes, so I think President Edgar Lucero just said it, but thank you all to who came out to AAS, who helped with AAS, especially to my committee. You all were rock stars, and I really, really appreciate it. And my next order of business is last week I forgot to welcome Senator Saxena to our committee. Saxena? And Saxena, okay. And I would be remiss if I did not do that. So welcome, Senator Saxena, to Bear Advocacy Group. We're glad to have you. And so, yeah, AAS was great. We discussed some higher education advocacy with Dr. Markham, Mr. Gillum, and with a lot of other SGAs from around the state. And we're looking forward to helping Henderson State plan it next year. And so we're going to have some evaluations available next week in a report compiled by our wonderful office workers who have also been instrumental in making AAS a success. And then our next project is going to be at the Capitol. So stay tuned for that. We're going to start working on the resolution.
What questions do you have for Senator Goldrow? Senator Weston.
My only question is kind of with information. So how long is it going to be for that day, the day at the Capitol? Will it be till like 3 p.m. or 5 p.m.?
So we don't have an exact agenda yet, but probably not as late as 5 p.m. Cool. But I would go ahead and miss probably all of your classes for that.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
What other questions do you have for Senator Goldrow? Will you tell us the date for those of our senators that are new that don't know the date?
Yes. Oh, and also, just to give you some background, Day at the Capitol is a day where all of the SGAs, or some of the SGAs from the state of Arkansas, get together at the Capitol and have a day of higher education advocacy. Historically, we've all drafted resolutions and we've read them in rotunda, except this year, we're very excited because Mr. Gillum has partnered with us and is going to help us make this a really effective day of lobbying and advocacy. We're going to meet with some legislatures. We're going to have a catered lunch with several statewide officials. That's going to be very exciting. And that day is going to be February 28th. We will have an agenda for that hopefully soon, but mark your calendars. You're definitely going to want to be a part of it.
What other questions do you have for Senator Kilbro? Community engagement, Senator Sander.
Hi, so this week I met with Kimberly Ashley Foley, which is the mother of Joshua Ashley Foley of the Joshua Ashley Foley Act. And she is speaking at Save Our Students, so that's really, really exciting that she's a part of like our community, which is the capital of this act. Anyway, so I have an excuse letter for those of you that signed up and said you can an excuse letter. So I'm going to send this around. If the excuse letter changes anything for you, you get another chance to contact me tomorrow and we can final count. So,
What questions do you have for Senator Sander? Will you also explain this event and give them the dates too?
okay, so Save Our Students for the Senators is we are holding a week-long campaign about basically substance abuse and like the opioid epidemic in Arkansas. And our main event is the kickoff, and it's at the Capitol in Little Rock. And we are having the governor, the attorney general, the Arkansas state drug director, Bert Lane, speaking. And it's a really good thing. So it's kind of we're going to have members go to the Capitol. And it's March 11th from 9 to 11. It's a Monday.
What questions do you have for Senator Sander? Student Resources, Senator DePersia.
Hello. So, as you guys have probably seen in the email, Senator Beavers has something exciting to present later tonight. And then Senator Galarza and Senator Patel are still working on the gazebo project with Vice President McGinn. And I just wanted to yield to Senator Skate for a second to talk about what her and Senator Graham are working on, because it's pretty exciting and I think it's best if it comes from her.
Hello everyone. So right now me and Senator Graham are actually working on the Child Care Initiative, and it's been a project that was brought to SGA a couple of times in the past. I chose to push this project because I am passionate about it, and being a mother myself, I do have a wonderful, almost 4-year-old daughter, and so I've gotten the opportunity to meet a lot of amazing non-trans students, and not just students, but staff and faculty alike that would love to see something like this brought to campus, and it's just really, really cool. So far, we have written an official letter and sent it out, and we have about 3 professors that's on board with it, and a couple of faculty members and a couple of students. And so from this point forward, you're just here updated information about what we bring together for data, and eventually we will present to SGA and hopefully get backed by SGA. And from that point forward, we will take it to the president or the board of trustees. So just look forward to hearing more information about that.
Wow, okay, that's awesome. Great work, both of you, that's really exciting. Senator DePersia, do you have anything else to add? What questions do you have for Senator DePersia or Senator Skate? Sustainability, Senator Spears.
So first off, I'd like to give a shout out to my committee for making some really good ideas for the physical plants implementation and recycling signs around campus. Some of the stuff were kind of more relevant statistics about how sustainability affects college students directly, like say the pounds of garbage that a college can consume within a given week. And also some more creative sides and kind of comical ideas where we could place memes throughout each of the signs on campus to kind of give students a funny and creative way to look at how recycling can be done. And similar to what, if you guys have been in the Hyper on the mirrors there, you can see that they've done rules with the memes. And so we thought it'd be a really creative way to get students' attention and to inform them about how they can make the campus a little bit of a cleaner place. And this week, I'll be contacting Adam Hensley over at the physical plant to kind of see where we're at on the Green Bag Initiative, which is kind of an initiative, for those who don't know, to kind of increase the ease of getting green bags from RAs to students around campus and dorms so that they can recycle, and the recycling plant can then take that trash and recycle it rather than just throw it away. That's about it for this week.
What questions do you have for Senator Spears? Any university committee reports? Senator Little.
So the UCA Core Council met for its monthly February meeting this past Tuesday during next period, and there are two main points that I want to give. First, after audit reviews by the audit reviews from the assessment subcommittee of the Core Council over 5 different UCA courses, they all received a positive report except for Finance 2330, which is personal finance, for failing to align to and promote the learning outcomes of responsible living. In order for an academic course to be considered in good standing with the university, a majority, which is greater than 50% of the course content, must align with or address the 3 learning outcomes of Goal B, which is well-being. Outcome 3, which is the impact of decisions, explicitly references assessing decisions in terms of well-being. However, none of the materials provided indicated that students were asked, invited, or prompted to substantively contemplate their financial decisions in terms of well-being or any normative valuational framework. So in other words, in the course, the coursework that was there already was basically saying, like, this is how you increase your wealth, but it failed to explain to students why it's important to increase your wealth as well. So that is why they received a negative report on that audit. The second point that I made involves the FYS courses in the future. After receiving an elaborate analysis from the FYS subcommittee of the Core Council on the future need of these courses, the FYS subcommittee recommended that the UCA Core Council endorse their analysis and brief statement of mission, the mission, value, and purpose of FYS courses at UCA. And we then charged the FYS subcommittee with making specific recommendations for improving the FYS courses at UCA, as well as implementing such improvements once endorsed by the council. So I know in my last report I mentioned that the future for FYS courses seemed bleak, but for now the only report I have to update is that the subcommittee is then working on ways to better invigorate the FYS courses so that students can actually know and actually retain more information from that course, and actually, once again, be more aware that they are actually having one of the courses being connected with an FYS requirement.
Other university committee reports? Vice President Burke.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, so for those individuals in personal finance, either last year or this year, is that class still being offered in grants or just with amendments to curriculum, or since I received that negative audit, right? What's the recourse to that academic unit?
So the subcommittee will then they'll be reviewing the course content and making amendments, changes to not just that one specific class, but like for that one professor who was teaching it, but for the entire content of that class as well. And then once that recommendation is made in an analysis format, then we at the Core Council will then approve whether to pass or push away that amendment. But at the very worst, because of the Core Council, we're not trying to just get rid of the course. That's like the last resort that we want to do. We want to try to find ways to reinvigorate the course and make sure that students are retaining and learning information, not just to get the easy A, but to apply that in their future as well.
Just a follow-up to that question. This is not the Core Council determining whether or not to get rid of the course. It is determining whether or not it will remain a part of the core as a responsible living course, correct?
Yes.
Other university committee reports? Any unfinished business? Senator Lawkins.
I move that we amend Article 3, Section 1, Letter A, to raise the cumulative grade point average for the qualifications of candidacy for the executive offices.
Second. It has been moved and seconded that the UCA SGA amend Article 3, Section 1, Letter A, to raise the cumulative grade point average for the qualifications of candidacy for the executive offices. Discussion on the motion, Senator Watkins.
So This motion is to raise the GPA for the executive board for the new senators. That's executive president, vice president of operations, and Vice President Burton. And the motion, the previous notice that's in Vice President of Finance. And so it was presented last week, but there's a previous notice. It's between each of you. You should be able to share it. And I'm going to yield to Senator Therion so that he can make a motion to my previous notice for last week so that the language is what's in front of you.
Senator Therion.
Move that we add to the clause to say that at the end of the semester, prior to the election, and must maintain a grade point average of at least 2.750 for each semester. And that just is a straight add-on to the very end of the previous notice to make it concurrent with what we have now.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we add to the clause to say that, quote, at the end of the semester prior to the election, and must maintain a grade point average of at least 2.750 for each semester. Discussion on the amendment to the motion.
So, just so everybody knows, the basis for this is Senator Lockings and I, we had a little bit of a miscommunication. We both brought the previous notice together, and then we realized, well, we have a little bit of hiccup or two inside the previous notice anyway. So we came together, we worked it out, and we realized, okay, this is now the appropriate way to approach this. And so now we're together on this. We got the language the exact way that we want it, so it can fulfill the, there we go. So it can fulfill the original intent.
I just want to offer a little bit of clarification. So what we are currently debating and then what we will be voting on is the amendment to the motion that Senator Therion just made. So his amendment is that we add that executive officers must also maintain a 2.750 GPA prior to the end of each semester, as well as prior to the end of the semester of the year the election, or the semester the election is held. So we are just voting on this amendment. If this amendment passes or fails, we will then go back to the original motion that Senator Lockings made about raising the overall cumulative GPA for candidates for the executive offices. Does anyone have any questions about that? Is anyone confused?
Does this mean they have to have cumulative GPA, or does this mean each and every semester has to have every semester 2.75 GPA? First semester, it says each semester.
Cumulative.
So friendly amendment. Okay. Okay, further discussion on the motion.
Yes.
Senator Therion?
I would like to make a friendly amendment to the amendment to the amendment. Sorry. I'd like to make a friendly amendment to the amendment to the amendment that it is a cumulative GPA, not a semesterly GPA.
Any objections? Okay. So now the amendment to the amendment will read, at the end of the semester prior to the election, and must maintain a cumulative grade point average of at least a 2.750 for each semester. Further discussion on the motion. Senator Lockings.
Okay, so the previous notice in front of you is how it would look if Senator Therion's motion passes with an addition to cumulative where he just added it. So this is, like he said earlier, this is how we want it to actually look. So if we pass his amendment, this is how it will look, and then we can go on to vote to just accept the overall motion.
Further discussion on the motion. It has been moved and seconded that we add to the clause to say that at the end of the semester prior to the election, and must maintain a cumulative grade point average of at least 2.750 for each semester. Roll call vote, Vice President McGarity.
Barrientos. You're fine. Hassan. Say yes or no.
Yes.
Beavers.
Yes.
Burton.
Yeah.
Kale. Yes. Cato.
Yes.
Sheik.
Yes.
DeLuca.
Yes.
DePersia.
Yes.
Barnum.
Abstain.
Abstain. Galarza.
Yes.
Golden. Graham.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Kilgore. Yes. Little. Lockins.
Yes.
I vote yes. Murphy.
Yes.
Patel.
Yes.
Howell.
Yes.
Rajendran.
Yes.
Ramirez.
Abstain.
Sander.
Yes.
Saxena.
Yes.
Skate.
Yes.
Story.
Yes.
Spears.
Yes.
Street.
Yes.
Teeter.
Yes.
Furion.
Yes.
Tribble.
Yes.
Van Brunt.
Yes.
Wadeson.
Yes.
Wesley.
Yes.
Weston.
Yes.
Young.
With 34 yeses, 0 nos, and 2 abstentions, the motion to the amendment passes. We will now go back to the original motion. So it's been moved and seconded that we amend Article 3, Section 1, Letter A to raise the cumulative grade point average for the qualifications of candidates for the executive board, stating that they, at the end of the semester prior to the election, must maintain a cumulative grade point average of at least a 2.750 for each semester. Further discussion on the motion. Vice President Burton.
Yeah, I got it. It might be a friendly. So, reading it over again. The last clause, I think, might be a comma splice. So I've got a solution. Where it says must, comma, and must maintain a grade point average, I think it might be beneficial to read at the end of each semester prior to the election and maintain a cumulative grade point average of at least 2.75 for each semester in office or served thereafter. Right. So you have 2 musts. Did you see that? But it's the same subject.
So you're making a friendly amendment?
Yeah.
So what's your
Yeah.
amendment? Sorry.
So my friendly amendment would be to take out the comma and remove the second must. Throw the cumulative in there. And then I do, I don't know if this is a friendly, but
Hold on that. Are there any objections to that friendly amendment?
I just don't know if it's a friendly. It could very well be a friendly. But when we say maintain a cumulative grade point average of at least 275 for each semester, I would just cut it there. Are we meaning really each semester served in office thereafter, right? Do we need to spell that out? Is the question I'm asking.
I thought, doesn't that spell itself out and they must maintain a grade point average of at least 2.75 for each semester?
For each semester in office? Is that what we mean?
Yes, like if you're not an exec, it doesn't apply? I thought that was pretty straightforward.
Just making sure.
Further discussion on the motion? Senator Ramirez.
Point of information, what is the purpose of the motion presented today?
Will Senator Lockins yield to that question?
So after discussion with the executive board, we've come to the conclusion that along with their full disclosure, the executive board does get a scholarship. They also work as well. And so we thought that this 2.75 as reflected in part of our reason for amendment is to sort of reflect the role and academic requirements needed for the executive board. And it's sort of us holding them to a higher standard. So that's why we're not raising the GPA for the entirety of Senate. It's sort of Senate holding our executive offices to a higher standard than that of our own, if that answers your question.
So like, follow-up question. So basically, standing a president, correct?
Yes.
Further discussion on the motion? Vice President Burr.
I just want to make it very clear that this wasn't brought from exec through Senator Lockings to the body. I want to make it very clear that this was brought from internal affairs, presented before the body, and that the collective is not defined in one perspective. Okay?
Senator Farnell.
Yes. So my question, or this is more of just a comment kind of related to Senator Ramirez's question. The reason for amendment that you've listed here, to read it, for those of you who don't have one in front of you, it says, to raise the cumulative grade point average requirement for the qualification of candidacy for executive president, executive vice president of operations, vice president of finance, in order to reflect the role and academic requirements needed for the executive board. That doesn't sound like a reason to me. It sounds like what the amendment actually does. And then also it says, in order to reflect the role and academic requirements needed for the executive board. I don't believe it's a requirement that the executive board has a 2.75. As listed right now, the requirement is actually 2.5. So just the wording of the reason, I don't think that's a reason. I think that's what this does. And maybe the two are the same, but I didn't think so. And then so what I was going to suggest though is that I don't understand why raising it to 2.75 is because they're getting a scholarship. We have several scholarships given out by a university, scoring scholarships. It's not an academic scholarship is what I'm getting at here. They're not held to an academic standard. You don't have to have a 2.75 to be a great executive member.
So this is
Senator Theory on.
This is just some point of information. So the reason for amendment, Senator Lockings and myself decided to go with the previous notice reason for amendment, just to avoid the amendments to amendments to amendments to amendments, all that hassle. So we're actually going with the original. So this reason for amendment actually isn't necessarily applicable to this motion. The only part that is applicable is on the adjustments when we have it underlined on the back page. So this reason for amendment in front of you, not relevant to this previous notice. This was just an example, had some hiccups, just trying to make it perfectly clear. And now when it comes down to making a difference between academic, actually wait, no, this is a completely different thing. I had to do one of them.
Further discussion on the motion? Senator Ramirez, and this is your.
Are we currently in the debate?
Please stand, please.
Are we currently in the debate part?
Yes, we are debating the motion as it reads now with the amendment that just passed.
Okay, and then point of information also, are there a speaking time set?
No speaking time has been set, but you're limited to speak twice on a motion.
Awesome, thank you so much. Senator Ramirez writing in opposition of today's motion for today. So first is understanding the concept that we as a student government association have a unique opportunity for individuals to actually foreshadow and actually look into experiences with university administration. Right now, currently, they're getting paid, but they're also getting hands-on experience as individuals to work in university administration, which is actually a really cool thing because you're not giving that many opportunities at university if you want to intern and actually get hands-on experience. By also raising it up to 2.75, there's not a significant change for that, but you're also idolizing and outcasting the individuals that have less than a 2.75, but they are meeting the requirements of actually graduating on time and so forth. And so I don't see why this should be a reflection and this is why it should be a precedent. We should always practice constancy, the ideal image and identity of a senator. because we are respected as individuals, and if we try to distort that identity, then our opinions and our expressions are no longer as credible as before. So that's why we need to practice constancy. And that's why 2.5 is a great GPA par to continue on as the SGA senator. So I ask that you, senators, vote no on this motion.
Further discussion on the motion, Senator Therion.
Okay, so I want to make it perfectly clear when it comes down to this GPA being raised. Why not have all senators just have a GPA requirement of 2.0? Why not? Why not 1.0? There's got to be certain standards. We have to be able to have confidence that this executive board can deal with administration, be able to present themselves, and be able to push out paperwork and legislation and operate this office in a well-maintained order. And when it comes down to representation, we're volunteers. We understand that. We're not wanting to raise any kind of standard for us. We are the representation, we are the voice. This is a job. In fact, it is essentially a career. These people get paid almost more than any other executive board in the entire state when it comes down to them working their 10 office hours. The president gets full tuition, room and board, and gets to stay in the nicest housing the university has to offer. For the executive, vice presidents, and the vice president of finance, and the vice president of operations, half tuition, full room and board. These are incredible benefits. This is not something you just walk up and say, oh, that sounds pretty cool, I like it. The university themselves, they have dictated for a junior and senior to be at that kind of level of compensation. They themselves said, no, you need about a 3.0 to get access to this kind of scholarship. That's the kind of excellence that we desire as a university. And so holding them to a 2.5 is just, it's just not enough. This is a job. This is a hobby. This is volunteering. We are paying them to do a job. And if they're going to be the most highly compensated people in the entire state, then they should have the highest standards in the entire state.
Point of information.
Senator Teeter.
Mr. President, what is the GPA requirement to be a student in good standing at the University of Central Arkansas?
Can I help Brandon yield the doctor?
I'm not 100% certain, but I believe that in order to be in good standing, you need a 2.000.
Yes.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion, Senator Kilgrove.
Yes, so I would just like to clear up some misconceptions that we've had. So Senator Therion brought a question to the body. Why can't we have a 2.0? Why can't we have a 1.0 to be an SGA? Well, we know we've had previous GPA discussions that to be in any RSO, to be in a good standing with the university, you have to have a 2.5 GPA. So we definitely already have a cutoff, and we're at that cutoff right now. And I think that that is appropriate for many reasons. I think Senator Farnham brought up a really good point that this is not an academic scholarship. I believe that your ability to be a good executive member should not be tied to your academic performance in any way, so long as you're in a good standing with the university and you're in good standing with other RSOs on this campus. And also, I would like to raise the question to the body, how negligible is a 0.25 increase of GPA? Like if we're saying that 2.5 is not academically excellent, but 2.75 is, I would just ask you to ponder that for yourself. And I think it's really dangerous when we start directly tying someone's leadership ability to their GPA, because we know that there are a lot of other factors that affect GPA, like socioeconomic status, like your opportunities that you've had in life, like life circumstances. And so we know that GPA, it does not give a holistic picture of a person and of how you are as a leader. And so I think tying that to your leadership ability is a really dangerous assumption for us to make in this body. And it's just my opinion that any student in academic good standing with this university and with an RSO should have the opportunity to build those connections that the executive board gets to, especially since this is not an academic scholarship.
Point of information.
Yes, ma'am.
What do other institutions in the state of Arkansas, what is their GPA requirement to be on exams?
Okay, I'll yield to that. So it ranges. There are I believe there are 2 other institutions that their student governments require what our current minimum is, which is a 2.500. There are many other institutions that it is a 2.750. There are some that it's a 3.0. There are some that it's a 3.250. So it varies across the state depending on the institution and depending on their student government.
Point of information, can you give an example?
An example of what?
Of an institution that actually adopts a 3.0 GPA or higher?
I don't have that information in front of me, so I apologize. I would like to clarify something. When you are rising to speak regarding, when you're rising to debate, please say whether or not you stand in opposition or in support of the motion, like Senator Ramirez did. That way that we know when you're discussing what your stance is on the issue. Further discussion on the motion. I'm going to yield to Senator Teeter's previous question about good standing, all of that. Per the University of Central Arkansas definition, good academic standing is a student who is not on probation or suspension is considered to be in good academic standing. Evaluation of academic standing for all sessions of a term will occur at the end of each term, fall, summer, or fall, spring, and summer. So that is the university's definition of academic good standing. Okay. Academic alert. A student is given an academic alert whenever their term grade point average is less than a 2.0. A student who has been given an academic alert but who is not on academic probation or suspension is still considered to be in good standing with the university. So just to clarify, you are considered in good standing with the university even if your grade point average is below a 2.0 unless you've been issued an academic alert. So just clarification on that. Thank you, Dr. Tarka. Further discussion on the motion? Okay, Senator Therion, and this is your second time and final time to speak.
So when it comes down to,
Do you rise in
I
support?
rise in support.
Thank you.
Yes. When it comes down to our executive board, the reason why we want this, or I myself want this to be raised from a 2.5 to 2.75 is, all right, let's say the worst happens. This thing passes and one of our executive board members falls below that grade point average. If it maintains that standard, if they go to a 2.74, they don't lose their opportunity to be a senator. They don't lose their voice. They don't lose their ability to stay, let's say, inside of their fraternity without any discourse or recourse, my apologies. Or being an RSO. They still get to be a part of the university, but not necessarily the most well-compensated leaders. They still get to be here. They're still here with us. But they don't get to have the title of the executive president.
Point of information, like whenever their GPA drops, they're no longer on student government, right?
No.
How would that work?
So what I mean by that is if they were to be dropped from student government, from their executive position, and an open position comes, so they still have that
Senator
one.
Therion, point of order. Dr. Tarka will yield to your question. Senator Kershaw.
We haven't had anybody on the executive board in the 5 years that I've been dropped below the threshold. That there have been senators that have not met academic credentials. And what happens is that they are removed from Senate.
So
if the student doesn't meet a 2.500, then they're no longer, they're not allowed, they're not eligible, they don't meet the eligibility standard.
right. So what you're saying is if they drop below a 2.75, we lose an executive member and a member of Senate.
Well, that I can't comment on about what the protocol is.
Okay.
Because this is not circumstances that never happen.
Point of information then. So do we not? I mean, if we were to adopt this, would there not need to be clarification about what happens whenever you're in this position? Would it not be better to add more clarification? I guess to anyone who's going to build it. Like, I mean, as it stands, it's so vague, it doesn't have the answer to what happens if they drop below 2.75.
Unless there's an open Senate seat, then that person would have to be removed. And given the way the Constitution is written, the person that takes that seat would have to apply to run, and they would have to be an election to fill that particular seat. and then that would create a vacancy, and then the person that was removed would then be eligible to apply for that if the grade point average is between 2.5 and 2.75.
I'm going to yield to Senator Ramirez's question about the GPA because I do have some specific examples. So Henderson State University's Vice President of Student Affairs said that their GPA requirement for a senator is a 2.6 and their exec GPA is a 2.75. For Southern Arkansas University, their student body president, it's a 2.5 for their senators and a 2.7 for e-board officers. So those are two examples of peer institutions where they do have a higher GPA standard for their executive officers. I just didn't want to leave anyone with questions about that since I made that comment.
Am I allowed to finish?
Yes, you can finish your discussion.
Thank you. So when it comes down to, let's say this passes, they go to a 2.74. They still get to be in their clubs. They still get to apply for an open spot. The appointment committee still goes into action. And I think we can all safely say that we would love to work with any one of these exec board members as a senator. That's fair to say. We can all have them as a senator. That is a volunteer position. We're open to any kind of representation here. We're not exclusive there. We're just only on a 2.5 mark there. But when it comes down to them being, again, the most highly compensated, or one of the most highly compensated in the entire state, I think it should reflect that with the credentials of our peers. Now yield my time.
Senator Kale.
I rise in support of this motion. What I love about SGA and why I joined it in the first place is because it challenged me. It challenged me to be a better leader, and it challenged me to reach out more and be more confident in myself and my abilities and what I can change on campus. And I think if somebody wants to be on exec and they're just about to, they're at a 2.5 right now, and they really want to be on exec, I believe that they, if they're in this organization, they can definitely work to get that 2.75 and they can get it, because knowing the senators in this room, I know you're all capable of raising your GPA like that if you really want it that bad. I want to go to med school. I'm going to work my tail off until I get in, and I'm going to work my tail off for the rest of my life because I'm just a goal-oriented person, and everybody in here is. And I truly believe that SGA is a fabulous platform, and we are able to all do that. And if you want to run for exec, it is the highest leadership position on this campus. And if you want it that bad, I think you'll be able to raise your GPA and motivate yourself.
Senator Watkins.
Just want to bring up some points to sort of clarify what's been, brought up surrounding it. The clause that we're doing for the executive positions to raise the GPA, if you look at your previous notice, is reflective of the clause for SGA office representatives, so it reads the exact same. We have in our Constitution removal procedures for if it drops below a GPA for any senator. This is qualification of members, so removal of a senator is not going to be reflected in this clause right here. This 2.75 is the exact language that is the 2.5. So for clarification purposes, further in your Constitution, it does have removal of senators and procedures pertaining to that. And also, the arguments behind the opposition for this clause make it seem very negative. I don't think it's about excluding anybody or including or determining one's leadership above other people, but it's competitive. Last year, only one of the executive positions was opposed, and that was the executive vice president. If you want to run for exec, you're going to run for exec. And if you don't want to run for exec, you're not going to run. Internships, jobs, scholarships, everything is competitive, and a lot of them will judge you based off of your GPA. We are not judging you based off of your GPA. We as senators are holding our leaders to a higher academic standard. Now that's not saying someone with a lower GPA wouldn't do that great of a job, but it's saying this is the academic requirement we're placing on the executive board. If you have a job opportunity or an internship or a scholarship, the person with the higher GPA is going to have leverage. Not saying they're always going to get chosen, but it's a sort of leverage. And while that may come off as negative to a lot of people, it's just how it is. So I think that we should get away from the conversation and the narrative that we're excluding people and sort of go to the narrative that we're student government and we are leaders on campus, and we're holding our leaders to a higher standard. And I think that's the narrative we should follow.
Further discussion on the motion? Senator Ramirez, and this is your second and final time to speak.
Yes. Alrighty, everyone. So this is my last speech for today. Say, thank you. So a great debate. Alrighty, so let's tackle what's been brought on for today. So first is understanding the challenges. I love this idea of challenges that SGA brings onto individuals, but people are not looking at the great opportunities that SGA provides for individuals who actually want to get to university administration. And so because of this leverage, we're not giving that opportunity to other individuals, especially when it comes to grades. What's interesting also about the executive position is that previously we passed a motion where you have to serve on SGA for an entire year, yes, year, to run for an executive office, which is going to be a really cool thing because you'll be challenged and then you'll enjoy everything that SGA has to offer. So you'll get insight into it to fully transition into the SGA position. So I don't understand why we need to raise the GPA a lot higher than it is, because you're looking at the effort being presented, not like your grade-wise, but the effort you put into SGA. Second, understanding that, yes, this is excluding. We're supposed to be inclusive as SGA individuals. We're actually excluding individuals who want to run for these leadership positions and these great opportunities to work at university administration. So yes, it's very exclusive. So in the end, to really go into the crystallization on why you should vote no on this motion is first understanding president and how this president is unfair towards other leaders on campus. We are still developing as leaders. We're not in this perfect idea that we're student leader. We're still developing it, still facing challenges that comes into it. We still have to climb that mountain a lot higher. With this leverage, it's gonna pull us a little down. So we have to understand that. Second, understanding that this internship job kind of is great opportunities for students who want to get into university administration. And then lastly, voting no on this motion will actually benefit every individual in SGA. And so with that, I ask that you vote no for this motion for today.
Senator Kilgore, and this is your second and final time as well.
Yeah, so I would like to rise in opposition to this motion because I would like to address some of the things that were mentioned about you know, we have talk about where we have jobs, we have internships, and these things are competitive in the real world. And I agree, they absolutely are. But we see that these are really not parallels that can be drawn to this office because we do have an election every year to get into this office, and it's called an election. We're voted in by the people. So right, that's the main competition that I think that we need to be worrying about for these office is what the people have to say. And so I don't think we can exclusionary from this narrative because no matter how you slice it, this amendment is going to be exclusionary. We have not heard any direct evidence how your GPA correlates with you being a better leader. I have high standards for our executive board just like all of you do. I expect that Vice President McGarity is going to be honest. I expect that President Lucero is going to have integrity. I expect that Vice President Burton is going to work hard in everything that he does, right? Those are my standards for our executive board. Our stick values, those are my standards, and that's really what I'm concerned that our executive board is doing. We don't see how GPA directly correlates with their ability to do this. We also know that if you run any studies, GPA can be fairly arbitrary, right? We've all had that professor who gives us a grade. We don't understand why we got that grade. We don't understand why someone got a grade that's much better than us. And I think there's a lot of factors that go into calculating GPA that don't represent our values, right? That doesn't go into diversity, into inclusion in our institution. So I would just ask you, when you vote, think about why are we doing this, right? It's not about a high standard that directly correlates with any of the jobs that our executive board carries out, right? We're just excluding people in this body. I believe everyone in this room, if you have the qualifications to be on Senate, you have the qualifications to be on the board sitting up there. So I would like you to vote no also.
Point of information. This would be, since it is an article, this would be presented to the student body to vote on?
Is it a constitutional? It's a constitutional amendment, correct? Yes.
So the student body would vote on it in our election or no?
Yes. So for clarification, because it's an amendment to our Constitution, this body votes to approve it. It will then go on the ballot in the spring for the student body to vote on. The student body then has the final say. So if the student body votes no, even if we said yes, it doesn't change. If the student body, however, votes yes, and our body voted yes to send it to them, the GPA requirement would then change to a 2.75. Now, with that in mind, in the unfortunate incident that we hold exec elections and a member gets elected to the executive board and they don't have a 2.75 GPA, if the student body votes yes to implement that change, they will effectively be removed from their position, and we will have to hold a special election to fill the vacancy or follow whatever procedures are outlined in our Constitution to fill those vacancies. So that is what's going to happen. So what we're voting on right now is legislation that will go to the student body for our spring election this semester. It's not a change that will go into effect immediately. Senator Avi.
I want to rise in support of this motion. I think it is important to hold our executive to a high standard, partially because of the scholarship. If you look at any other aspect on campus, to hold a scholarship or get something of that nature is a very highly coveted thing. For example, in the education department, to even get admitted, you have to have a 3.0. Most departments, if you're going into a specific program, have a high requirement, and I see it fit to have our executive officers have that as well, just because of the nature of what they do. I do agree in the fact that our overall student body should not be that, and there's a reason for that. That way, if you were on a general level, I wanted to run if I wasn't graduating. If I wanted to run for the executive office, I could have that semester, I could have that year to raise my GPA in order to do that. And I think that's what we should think of. Think forward going, yes, that's what it is, and here's how I can better myself in order to do that.
Senator Tribble.
I rise in opposition to this amendment, and I'm just going to keep this short and simple, just based. We've had a lot of discussion on this, a lot of good points have been made, but I just want to keep this quick and simple. The Senate body is supposed to be representative of the student body, and I in turn think the executive board should be representative of the student body, and thus they should be held to the same standards as the Senate.
Senator Spears.
I rise in favor of this motion, and I'd like to, if Vice President Burton would, or Vice President of Finance Burton would go to a question. As the Executive Vice President of Finance, you do chair the staff committee, correct?
I do.
And would you say that committee has a fair amount of attention to detail and leadership over every RSO, considering the funding abilities for RSOs on campus through SGA?
I would consider that a member of that committee does need to possess those kinds of qualities to ensure that the work they do is of the highest quality. Though I think every person is unique, so I don't want to generalize.
Would you also consider it to be a fair amount of critical thinking involved in your everyday, day-to-day operations?
You could say that's fair.
So thank you. So why we are in college is for critical thinking. It's about attention to detail. It's about the numbers in the game. And although representation is critical, it's one of the standards we hold UCA to is diversity and a plethora of opinion. It's important that we have quality over quantity. Quality being the quality of work done by these executive staff. Quality to make sure that attention to detail gets met, that the numbers get broken down in the correct way. The RSOs, who are held to a standard of a 2.5, are led, for funding reasons, by a person that leads their GPA requirement, that sets the standard for all of their RSOs on campus in the role of the staff or committee. And so that's why I think that having a more rigorous, not necessarily standards, but standards of quality for the executive board is so integral in creating a not only diverse but extremely qualified array of people that can then help run the students in the university and make UCA a better place.
Further discussion on the motion. Senator Weston.
Thank you. I just want to say, everyone, I stand in negation of this mostly because we should be allowing everyone to have an opportunity, and I just feel that this bill just restricts that, and it kind of lowers sustainability. So if we want to make sure that everyone can have a fair chance, and we should keep it the same. We shouldn't be shutting doors, so we should open doors to people. Thank you.
Senator Lockings, this is your second and final time to speak on the motion.
Last thing to say, I listened to the arguments, and while there are some valid points, I just want to point out that if this motion passes, it's not us doing a disservice to the student body. The student body will vote on this. So if our constituents do not agree with this and do not think that we should hold them to a higher standard, that the playing field should be the same and that everybody should be qualified, then they will vote no. And if you don't believe in that faith of our constituents, then, you know, why are you here as an elected official? Our constituents, the student body, is going to vote on this if we pass the motion. And also, as far as the executive board interacting with administration, if you're on SGA, you're going to interact with administration. Dr. Patty Poulter knows me on a first name basis. President Davis knows a lot of us. Like, we all interact with the administration because we're all on committees and we all have events with them and we're going to SGA banquets. So being on the executive board doesn't give you sole access to administrative officials. We all get exposed to that. So I don't think that that should be one of the points in negating this motion to pass.
I just want to make sure everyone understands what's going on right now. Is anybody confused or do you have any questions? Okay, just throughout the process, if you have questions, please ask them because I don't want you to vote and be confused about what you're voting on or how you're voting because I know we're having a lot of really good dialogue back and forth. Okay, Senator Spears, and this is your second and final time to speak.
So we're here all as college students, to kind of piggyback on what Senator Lockings had said. We're here as college students. We're here to make a difference, but we're also here to get a degree. That's the reason why we're all here. It's the reason why we go to classes at 8 a.m. when we don't want to, when it's raining like it was this morning. It's the reason why we kind of trudge through 30-degree weather is because we want to better not only ourselves, but the ability to better other people. And I think as being a part of the executive board, you have to have that desire, and that desire directly correlates from your academic performance. Now, given there are anomalies, and that's why we're not saying putting this GPA requirement as a 3.75, we're putting it at a 2.75. So they can have 4 bad days, but 1 bad semester, it's a better representative sample of a higher quality of executive board that we have a higher GPA. Not such that it is impossible to meet, but keeps a quality ability of members to function appropriately and the students involved.
Senator DePercha.
I'm currently not sure exactly where I stand, so I'll preface with that. But I guess I have a question. We brought it up before about how many students read whenever they're voting on it, and on any sort of constitutional amendment. And we've talked about providing a summary, perhaps, or like if you vote yes or if you vote no. And I don't know if we came to any sort of conclusion if that was going to happen on future voting, or if that was something we just talked about.
Okay, so I'll yield to that. So just for clarification, the question that was asked, so we've had a discussion this year in SGA about the types of amendments that we propose to the student body to vote on to ratify in our Constitution. And what we've seen is that some of them get very lengthy, as you can see with the previous notices you get. They can be 6+ pages long. And I know for me, I read them as president, but that's a lot of reading to do. So I know if, just as a general member of the student body, I probably would not want to sit if we are proposing 10 amendments to the Constitution. I wouldn't want to read 60 pages of explanation to see what we're changing. So there has been conversation about their advocacy group providing some type of synopsis or a summary over each amendment that is being voted on, just so students can understand how their vote is going to impact the overall decision. So I think their advocacy group is still working on that. Let me also remind you all too that as elected officials, you have an obligation to your constituency that if we vote yes or no on this, you have the obligation to take that to your constituents. If you feel that your constituency would not be in favor of this proposed amendment to the Constitution, that is your obligation and your right to take it to your constituencies and have them vote no if it goes on the ballot. So remember that while we're discussing things within the body, and while it does go to the student body, even if you're of the opinion that the student body does or does not read all of the amendments that we put forth, remember that you as elected officials, you as senators of SGA and representatives of the student body have an obligation to educate your constituency and make sure they are fully aware of how they're voting and how their vote is going to impact the operations of our organization. Senator Weston, and this is your second and final time to speak.
Thank you. I just want to say I stand in negation because like our student body already runs perfectly well how it is, so there's no reason to change it.
Further discussion on the motion? Senator Barrientos?
I want to raise an opposition. Just one of the reasons why I joined SGA is because as a future student affairs professional, I care a lot about student development and I research a lot about student development. Most of the research that I've always read does not tie your GPA to your leadership skills. On the contrary, your leadership skills actually have an effect on your GPA. And that just means that as students get more involved in organizations, they're more likely to raise their GPA. So why would we don't let people run for SGA just because they don't have the GPA? On the contrary, they could actually increase their GPA once they join SGA. And I also want to say, like, yeah, once you go and try to get a job, they look at your GPA, but they also look at your leadership skills. That's why you have a resume. Your resume is not just your GPA, it's also your leadership skills. So it doesn't matter whether you have a 2.5 or 2.75 GPA, but your leadership skills and how you develop those during college.
Senator Wesley?
I stand in support of this amendment. This is my first time ever being here, so I'm kind of a little nervous. I don't know all the professional stuff to say. But I think that GPA is a reflection of how hard you work a lot of times. Of course, not always, because there are anomalies. But in those cases, you should be able to have a mature conversation with your professor and work out those issues. If you can't do that, then how are you supposed to work closely with the administration that is, especially like the president of the college? Like, how are you supposed to work with them if you can't even work with your professors? And not to be offensive or hurt anyone's feelings, but I think that some things are exclusive and that's okay. Of course, everyone has an opportunity to be on SGA. If you want to run, you can, but being elected or not is exclusive, and that's just the facts of it. Not everyone can be here today. Not everyone can be on the executive board, and that's okay. So it is competitive and it is exclusive, and if that comes down to who has a higher GPA, then that is a reflection of maybe how hard they work, how much they're dedicated to their academics, and I think that would directly reflect how much they would be dedicated to their job as an executive member.
Further discussion on the motion? Senator Tribble, and this is your second and final time to speak.
This is my last time to speak, and I rise in opposition to this motion, this amendment. As the previous senator has already stated through her experience working in her field, that there is no correlation between that GPA is not representative of leadership, but in fact the opposite, that if the more RSOs and organizations that students join, that can positively affect their GPA, and we should keep doors open for students to join these organizations. And I think as a representative body, we should be representative of the student body. We should not be exclusionary to our constituents. And I think our executive board, as the leaders and face of student government, they should also be representative of the student body. And that is why I rise in opposition to this amendment, and I encourage all my fellow senators to vote against this.
Well, Senator Tribble, you'll do a question?
Yeah.
I'm a little confused with what you just said there. You said that if your GPA lowers, then your leadership increases.
Point of order, the senator's out of
Speak
order.
on the motion.
What's that?
Do you have a point of information? Or are you speaking? You already spoken twice. You're not allowed.
Can I move to previous motion? Previous motion.
Okay. Senator Ramirez.
Motion to move to previous questions.
Motion to previous question has been made and seconded. So for those of you that aren't aware what this motion to previous question will do, if you vote yes, you are voting to end debate and go immediately into voting on the amendment as it's stated. That means debate will end, so if there are others that still want to speak on this issue, they will no longer have that opportunity. If you vote no, then you are voting to continue debate and allow for your fellow senators to voice any other opinions or concerns they may have on the pending motion. So with that, Vice President McCarty, will you do a roll call vote?
Yeah. Barrientos.
Yes.
Hassan.
Yes.
Beavers.
Yes.
Burton. Hale.
No.
Caddo.
Yes.
Sheik.
Yes.
DeLuca.
Yes.
DePersia.
No.
Farnham.
No.
Galarza.
Yes.
Golden.
Yes.
Graham.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Ivy.
No.
Pilgrim.
No.
Little. Lockings.
No.
I vote no. Murphy.
No.
Tell.
Yes.
Powell.
No.
Ramchandani.
Yes.
Ramirez.
Yes.
Sander.
No.
Saxena.
No.
Scape.
No.
Story.
No.
Spears.
No.
Street.
No.
Teeter.
No.
Ethereal.
No.
Tribble.
No.
Van Grunt.
Yes.
Wainsman.
No.
Wesley.
No.
Weston.
No.
With 14 yeses, 20 noes, and 0 abstentions, the motion to previous question fails. Debate will continue. Further discussion on the motion.
Point of information.
Senator Lockings.
Would President Ettinger Lucero answer a question?
Always.
Sure thing. So, the good standing for the university is a 2.0, correct?
Yes, sir.
So, would you say, in your opinion, that having a 2.5 for SGA is exclusionary?
I think how I want to say this. Seeing as academic good standing is a 2.00 for the institution, setting our standard at a 2.50, yes, is exclusionary. But by definition of standard, that is the standard that is set to maintain your membership in an organization on this campus. Those regulations are set by the Office of Student Life. So
even though
if we wanted to change
Point of information.
that wouldn't work.
Or point of order.
Further, Senator DePersia.
Yes, I'd like to rise in opposition of this amendment. Sorry, Mr. Meeting? Okay. Senator Makita brought up a really good point. Like Senator Tribble said, she has experience in the field and kind of the effects of what GPA has on the real world and student success. And I think it's important to consider that just because like your GPA might be like low doesn't mean you're not qualified or won't do a good job at your job. And that's what the exec position is. It's a job.
That was also your second and final time to speak on the motion too. Sorry. Further discussion on the motion? Senator Powell.
I rise in support. I feel like we are all leaders on campus and we're to lead people. I think we should set ourselves to a higher standard. And then our leaders should also be set to a higher standard. I heard something about sports teams, and even on the football team, you have to have a 2.5 to get out of study hall, or you have to have 6 hours of study hall per week. So that's like pushing our sports teams and things and people that we lead to be better. And then to join an organization on campus, you also have to have a 2.5. And I see, like, we're leaders, so why would we want the bare minimum from everybody else? I think we should set ourselves apart. But as a general body, like, if you want to, like, build connections and stuff, I still think it's possible for anybody to come in and build connections by being on just a general body. You don't have to be on exec. I think if you want to excel and be on exec, and it is exclusionary because you're above, you do get scholarships and stuff like that. I think you should excel in all areas of life to be like a more well-rounded person. And also, our fraternities on campus, the university requires a 2.5, but I think pretty much every fraternity sorority, they want a 2.7 or 2.75 to join a fraternity. So I was like, if a fraternity wants a 2.75, I think why shouldn't our leaders at least have a 2.75?
Oh, you've already spoken twice on the motion, Senator Weston.
Point of information.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, President Edinger Lucero. So anyways, my point of information was like, do you know is there an idea, a general idea of like how many SGAs have like a 2.75 or higher? Is it popular or common or not common?
Point of order.
That question's been answered previously with stated examples from 2 other institutions in the state. Senator Tail, and this is your second and final time to speak on the motion.
Thank you. I rise in support of this motion, and I agree GPA may not be indicative directly to leadership skills. However, we're all leaders by just being on SGA, and part of leadership is challenging yourself, and part of leadership is humility, and part of leadership is becoming better. And sometimes sometimes requirements require you to be better in your GPA, and in this case, that would just be another strength that you could add to your resume on top of your already leadership skills by being in this organization. And I just think having this GPA requirement is a good challenge to rise up to and to better yourself as a person and challenge you in different ways, and just makes our leaders more well-rounded. And I just encourage you to vote yes on this motion, and the student body will vote on it anyway.
Further discussion?
Is it possible to table our discussion on this until the end of the Senate meeting to go through the other things and maybe take a pause and think about it?
If someone makes a motion to table discussion to a designated time, be that the end of the meeting or be that the next meeting or set a specific date, a motion would need to be made formally though.
With a motion card? Okay.
Further discussion on the motion? Okay, Senator Spears.
Will the President go for a question? Has there ever been in previous years a change or otherwise altering a GPA for executive board in the past couple of years?
So the short answer to that question is no. There's never been specifics in regard to the executive board alone. The longer answer to that question is yes. At one point in time, the minimum GPA requirement to be a member of Senate and therefore also a member of the executive board was a 2.750. A number of years ago, a motion was made in this body, passed, and also passed the student body, and that was effectively lowered to the 2.50 that we have now. So there was kind of two parts to the question that she asked. Okay. Further discussion on the motion? Senator Farnham, and this is your second?
Yes.
Some final thoughts?
Hey guys, I rise in opposition. I just wanted to, because I know this kind of keeps coming up about being inclusive or not. Being at 2.5 currently, the minimum GPA for Senate and executive, that is as inclusive as we can get because of the university's requirement for RSO's GPA. But if the university came out tomorrow and said that the minimum GPA is lower to 2.0, I would stand before you guys at the next meeting and make a motion that we should also lower the GPA. So I think it should be as broad to students as possible. So that's why it's a 2.5. I wasn't here during the vote that President Edgar Lucero was just speaking of when they decided to lower the vote. But I can only imagine that that was the intent, was to broaden the senators and have a more inclusive body. And to speak to Senator Powell earlier, I know you had mentioned football. I mentioned football, and I specifically was stating that because it seems one of the reasons why some of those in favor of this amendment are stating to raise is because they are getting scholarships to be on the executive board. However, I just want to reiterate the fact that it's not an academic scholarship, just in the same sense that football players or any sporting sports teams on campus, they're not getting paid for their academics, they're getting paid for their sport. And just like, I'm going to probably butcher your last name, I'm sorry, Senator Barrentos was stating, you don't have to have a high GPA to be a good leader. She said she's in that field, she's done research on this, okay guys? So as a mathematician, I'm going to take research over anything. And so that's why I will be voting no, and I encourage you to do the same. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion? Senator DePersia?
What? Okay. I move that the UCA SGA postpone this matter until the next regularly scheduled meeting for the purpose of more reflection on the topic.
It's a motion, you don't.
I'll second
You
this.
just, it's been, maybe you'll bring the motion. It has been moved and seconded that the UCI SGA postpone this matter until the next regularly scheduled meeting to allow for more reflection on the topic of debate. Discussion on the motion, Senator DePersia.
Yes, I just think a lot has been said during this, and I think everyone, I guess, sleeping on the idea might be beneficial. Maybe you can talk to your constituents, see what they think about it, see if it really affects them at all.
Further discussion, Senator Watkins.
I rise in opposition of tabling it. I think a lot of great things have been said from both sides, and discussion was over, and I believe we're about to move into a vote. So I would rather us finish the voting process of this now. Therefore, none of our arguments have to be reiterated at the next meeting.
Any further discussion on the motion to table? It has been moved and seconded that the UCA SGA postpone this matter until the next regularly scheduled meeting to allow for more reflection on the topic of debate. Roll call votes. Vice President McKennedy.
Barrientos. Yes. Hassan.
No.
Beavers.
No.
Burton.
No.
Kale.
No.
Cato.
No.
Cheek. DeLuca.
No.
DePersia.
Yes.
Farnham.
No.
Galarza.
No.
Golden.
No.
Graham.
No.
Hall. No. Ivy.
No.
Pilgrim. Yes. Little. Watkins.
No.
I vote yes. Murphy.
No.
Patel.
No.
Powell.
No.
Ramchandani.
Yes.
Ramirez.
No.
Sander.
No.
Saxena.
No.
Spade. Furion,
No.
Tribble,
Yes.
Van Brunt,
No.
Weitzman,
No.
Wesley,
Yes.
Weston,
No.
With 7 yeses, 29 noes, and 0 abstentions, the motion fails. And we will go back to discussion. Further discussion on the motion. Okay. It has been moved and seconded that the UCA SGA amend Article 3, Section 1, Letter A to raise the cumulative grade point average for the qualifications of candidacy for the executive board and add that at the end of the semester prior to the election, must maintain a cumulative grade point average of at least a 2.750 for each semester. Roll call vote, Vice President McGarity.
Barrientos,
No.
Hassan,
Yes.
Beavers,
Yes.
Burton,
Abstain.
Hale,
Yes.
Cato,
No.
Sheik,
Yes.
DeLuca,
Yes.
DePerja,
Abstain.
Farnham,
No.
Galarza,
Yes.
Golden,
Yes.
Graham,
No.
Hall,
Yes.
Ivy,
Yes.
Pilgrim,
No.
Little, Watkins,
Yes.
I vote yes. Murphy,
No.
Patel,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Ramchandani,
Yes.
Ramirez,
No.
Sander,
Yes.
Saxena,
No.
Skate,
Yes.
Story,
No.
Spears,
Yes.
Street,
Yes.
Teeter,
Abstention.
Furion,
Yes.
Tribble,
No.
Van Brunt,
Yes.
Weitzman,
Abstain.
Wesley,
Yes.
Weston,
No.
With 21 yes votes, 11 noes, and 4 abstentions, the motion passes. Any more unfinished business? Senator Spears.
I move that SGA amend Article 5 of the to provide an oath of office to SGA representatives, typically during retreat.
Second.
Will you bring the motion card down to the front, please? Thank you, sir. It has been moved and seconded that the UCA SGA amend Article 5 to provide an oath of office to SGA representatives. Discussion on the motion, Senator Spears.
Well, we believe it as internal affairs. We've discussed it. We think it's a great idea to add to the accountability that us as senators have to our students. And bringing an oath of office here at the beginning of our annual retreat would be a wonderful idea to instill that kind of accountability in all of us and the power that we have to make this campus a better place. And so this would be done typically at the beginning of the year, and it would be a general statement and would be read by either probably as specified at a later date, but would be taken by every SGA representative here.
Senator Watkins.
So the reason for this amendment out of internal affairs is that I noticed the executive board members, they have an oath of office that they say when they're going into their position. And I thought we as representatives should also have an oath of office to sort of have that accountability. And it was in the meeting minutes because the previous notice was presented last week. And it's not gonna say in the minutes, retreat specifically, because as you notice, if you've been on Senate throughout the years, we do have vacancies. So the oath of office can be said at any time for senators to be able to say that. And yeah, we just think it's something that we need to have for representatives as well.
Senator Teeter?
So, may Senator Watkins yield my question?
Yes.
What is the purpose of adding the clause in there about a religious test?
So our oath of office is reflective of the one they actually take in the U.S. Senate office, in Congress, we would say, or for any office taken by a governing body. And that is in there just as a reflective to say that we're not saying oath of office on the Bible or things like that. And while many may think that that's a given, I think that one of our goals for internal affairs was to eliminate gray areas and anything of the sort. So for that to be defined, I don't see it hurting anyone. It's just providing more clarity.
Point of information, can you pull this up?
We're working on it. Further discussion on the motion?
Do I still have the floor?
If you want the floor, yes, sir.
So I rise in support of this motion. I think it's very well written. I mean, I just don't see the point in the religious part. I mean, but hey, if you want in there, have at it. But, so I encourage you to vote yes, because I think this will make our obligation to our students maybe hit more at home. So.
Senator Therion?
Horizon in support of this motion, and this is honestly just a piggyback of what President Houston Davis has been saying throughout the entire year. We do not need people who are here to just obtain titles. We need people here who are ready to take action, and hopefully adding in this oath of office, just as it is a reminder to our executive board, is a reminder to every senator here, you are not here to check a box. You are here to get something done. You are here to represent your fellow students. I yield my time.
For reference, Vice President McGarity has put the previous notice up on the screen. So for those of you that are new and did not have access to the previous notice, you'll be able to see. And for those of you that just maybe don't remember, we will have what the oath is supposed to read. But further discussion on the motion. Senator Weston.
I just want to say I rise in support of the motion too. It's a good motion.
Further discussion? Senator DePersia?
Motion to, I guess, recess for like until it gets pulled up so everyone has the chance to read it. If there's no more discussion on the motion.
Overruled. We wouldn't have to recess.
Okay.
Further discussion?
You're gonna have to scroll all the way down. Okay, yeah, can I just like clarify? The reason the motion is so long is because the oath of office itself is its own article. So as internal affairs, when you're modifying the Constitution, for me to make it Article 5, all the articles have to be amended below it to like change the number article it is. So that's why it's so long, and I can find it for you if you want to. There it is.
And zoom in on that.
I can read it if you would like.
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is going to be the new Article 5, and Internal Affairs also talked about this placement. This is right after we do qualifications of candidacy and things like that, so we thought that that would be a good point for it. So it says, the elected representatives of the SGA shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test, which is what Senator Teeter was referring to. Once again, this is reflective of the language within Congress when they take the oath of office, so I thought it was reflective in our body. Shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the SGA of the University of Central Arkansas. The oath of office shall be spoken as provided. I do solemnly swear that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Student Government Association for the University of Central Arkansas, and will to the best of my ability advocate for the betterment of all constituents represented in our governing body. And so a lot of this language, once again, from Congress, but I also spoke with President Edinger Lucero about the actual oath of office to make sure everything sounded right, and this is sort of what we came up with together.
Vice President McGarry.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment to change the at will to and will.
Any objections? Okay. Friendly amendment passes. It will now read and will to the best of my ability. Further discussion on the motion? It has been moved and seconded that the UCA SGA amend Article 5 to provide an oath of office to SGA representatives. Roll call vote. Vice President McGarry.
Orientis. Yes. Hassan.
Yes.
Beavers.
Yes.
Burton.
No.
Okay. Kale.
Yes.
Caddo.
Yes.
Cheek. Yes. DeLuca.
Yes.
DePersia.
Yes.
Farnham.
Yes.
Galarza.
Yes.
Golden.
Yes.
Graham.
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Ivy.
Yes.
Kilgore.
Yes.
Little. Lockings.
Yes.
I vote yes. Murphy.
Yes.
Patel.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Ramchandani.
Yes.
Ramirez.
Yes.
Sander.
Yes.
Saxena.
Yes.
State.
Yes.
Story.
Yes.
Spears.
Yes.
Street.
Yes.
Skeeter.
Yes.
Therion.
Yes.
Turple.
Yes.
Van Brunt.
Yes.
Wadesman.
Yes.
Wesley.
Yes.
Weston.
Yes.
With 35 yeses, 1 no, and 0 abstentions, the motion passes. Any more unfinished business? Any new business? Senator Beavers.
I move that the UCA SGA, in accordance with the Student Life Affairs Committee, adopt the resolution titled, "A Resolution in Support of Open Textbooks."
Second.
Motion to approve by unanimous consent.
We gotta let her have discussion first.
Oops.
Don't do that.
It has been moved and seconded that the UCA SGA, in accordance with the Student Life Affairs Committee, adopt the resolution titled, "A Resolution in Support of Open Textbooks." Discussion on the motion, Senator Beavers.
So it's printed off. If you want to pull it up, I'll read it. Oh, never mind. It's right there. Okay. So a resolution in support of open textbooks. Whereas the price of textbooks rose at 3 times the rate of inflation between 2006 and 2016, according to the Consumer Price Index. Whereas the cost of textbooks is often a major affordability issue for students who take on additional student loan debt to pay for textbooks or undercut their own learning by foregoing the purchase of textbooks. Whereas textbook publishers have not responded adequately to the concerns of students, faculties, and other stakeholders. Whereas an open textbook is defined as a textbook written by education professionals and released online under an open license permitting everyone to freely use, print, share, and adapt the material. Whereas open textbooks offer an affordable, comparable, and flexible alternative to expensive commercial textbooks. Whereas it is the prerogative of faculty to select the course materials that are most appropriate for the class. Whereas it is appropriate to seek and consider low-cost and no-cost options, including open textbooks, as long as there is no reduction in educational quality. And whereas the Open Textbook Alliance is a coalition of student governments and student leaders that is working to expand the use of open textbooks on college campuses, therefore, be it resolved that the Student Government Association at the University of Central Arkansas supports the use of open textbooks, and be it further resolved that the Student Government Association at the University of Central Arkansas encourages faculty to consider open textbooks and other low-cost course materials when selecting textbooks, and be it finally resolved that the Student Government Association encourages the University of Central Arkansas to offer support to faculty to consider and adopt open textbooks when academically appropriate. So, yeah.
Anything else you want to
yeah, I just thought that this would be kind of a good starting place for this kind kind of project that the SGA is working on, and it just shows the students and faculty that this is something that we are going to be working on this semester, and I just thought this would be a good starting place for that.
Further discussion on the motion? It has been moved and seconded that the UCA SGA, in accordance with the Student Life Affairs Committee, adopt the resolution titled "A Resolution in Support of Open Textbooks." Roll call vote, Vice President McGeary.
Second.
Motion passes by unanimous. Any other new business? Any announcements? Senator Kale?
Two really quick things. One, President Edgar Lucero mentioned wellness care tomorrow. I'm partially in charge of that event. I'm a wellness ambassador, and that was my little idea that I cracked open in August, and we're working very hard on it. And so if you have any questions, let me know. And you don't have to stay from 1 to 2:30 to pop in and do whatever you want. Secondly, great discussion tonight. I love it.
Or any other announcements? Vice President McGeary.
Okay, rules and ethics, don't forget we're meeting tonight still. And then freshmen, the 4 newly elected freshmen are having an info session tonight, so don't forget to record those, come find us.
Any other announcements? So again, I want to say thank you to all of you. Very, very good discussion tonight on all of the legislation that we were debating. So thank you very much for having this dialogue and this conversation about all of these ideas. And remember that these things will go to the student body for approval now. So if you were on the opposition tonight and still feel empowered to be in the opposition to those, reach out to your constituencies and encourage them. Make sure that you educate them on what these proposed amendments will change within our organization. So thank you all. Any final announcements? Advisors, do you have anything? This meeting is adjourned.
Okay, so I'm just gonna stay in.
I'm sending an email out as soon as I can. Executive office. Friday starting.
Can I get it, man?
So you all will get an email from me and a link to it whenever I get here. And then you'll get it. Thank you all for responding. I don't think so, but I looked at it. I want, honestly, what I would do is a new response.
Yeah, I did.
But I went back and looked at what your schedule was, and I saw Friday.
Wow. I have restrictions. I have restrictions.
We meet every Monday at 5.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's not. No, I
I wasn't talking to Rose. Thank you. I mean, you can play it by ear,
I would like it to be known, I just looked through all the parliamentary procedure stuff as if I knew what was happening and wanted to yell at the board about 3 times, but didn't know if it was practice.
Just know that they'll tell people to use it properly. Don't be afraid to yell at the
I'll ship my office hours as well.
I think 1:30 also. Push it back.
1:30.
Let's just 30 minutes.
Well, I will not, I'm already, I'm booked off on Friday.
I want to apologize.
I will, yes, do that now. I'll make it work.
And if you're a few minutes late, then I'll know. So we're all good. Thank you.
How many seconds did I get this?
What I say, I literally.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a debate.
So you're going to be on, but he can introduce his speech.
Representing your constituency. We heard several of these issues.